Awesome. Thank you for doing this, first of all. Uh,
No, thank you.
well, my pleasure. And congrats in advance on the film. I saw it back at Telluride and one, enjoyed it, obviously. Two, I can't tell you how happy I was when I saw that it was like 90 minutes long as opposed to like 2 hours and 37 minutes long. And like, I don't know why so you wrote it, you can talk about it. The instincts to make these, so drawn out, not in, and
Mm.
they don't necessarily mean that it's bad. I mean, I love the Scorsese movie. It's 8 hours and 12 minutes, but you know, this movie, while being kind of light on its feet and fun, doesn't have any wasted energy. It doesn't have any wasted time. There's propulsion. It's the same story that you would have seen at like double the length. So how do you find the, I guess, economy in storytelling to do that, to do in 90 pages or 100 pages what normally takes 150?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I do feel like a movie shouldn't not be not more than 2 hours, at least for me. I
All right.
feel like structure is, the it's 3 act structure, and it's if you give yourself the restrictions of like 2 hours, for me, that always feels right. Like, and I think for this particular film, and just in general, when I'm doing biographical, I really Cradle to Grave is not my style. And some of them are great. Or ones that are sort of like episodic throughout like different periods. Sometimes that works. I think for me, like I try to find that one moment,
Mhm.
that really defines the person's greatness, if you will,
Yeah.
or the great thing that came out of their existence, their work. So I think with this film, it was kind of easy, like when I was like doing early research, because if you're doing a film about Bayard Rustin, I mean, the March on Washington is a huge achievement. It's, still the largest mass demonstration in, American history. So I knew that the march had to be involved. And, there was no embellishment in it. He only had 8 weeks.
Yeah.
He only had 2 months to do it. And, that was sort of like, I was like, okay, this is his mission impossible.
Yeah.
And we have a ticking clock. Perfect. And it also was a convergence of people who, were meaningful in his personal life and career. So, King, Roy Wilkins, and then how he works with the young people as an organizer, all of that came into it. So I was like, this is the perfect structure for this. And yeah, I mean, like one of my favorite biographical films is Capote.
Yeah.
I just think it's so, you know, perfect. I think it's perfect. I think it's a perfect film. The script is, it's just right, no overwriting. It's succinct. It's taking a moment that defined really like Capote's growth.
Mhm.
And, I feel like that was the hard part with Rustin. And I'm sure, that was the hard part with Capote is what is the growth arc of the character, or everyone doesn't grow,
Yeah.
right? But like, still like what is that arc that they're up against? And yeah, so for Bayard, finding that was the difficult part.
I would imagine. And as it starts as just a historical record, right? The what happened is there, and then there's a computer, and you start to type, and then some of that comes in, and things get moved around to make it a movie, and you're doing that, but it's still kind of hypothetical, right? It's like this may never happen. And then you fast forward to a certain point, you're like, oh, here's an actor playing the role. Here's other actors playing the other roles. Here's a director. We're being the producers used to be the president. Okay, like this is going well, I think. Like, how do you sort of keep from getting too up or too down? Because there's peaks and valleys to all of that. So I mean,
Mhm.
everything's about to be amazing. Oh wait, no, it's not happening. Now it is. How do you sort of stay at the level where when you hit the end, for lack of a better word, and went, I did it. If nothing else happens, I did this. I made the script. I made something I want to see.
Yeah, I think, my screenwriter friends, we all like, we talk about this. And if you're going to be a screenwriter, you just have to be proud of of your draft
Yeah.
that you turn in. Because you don't know what's going to happen to it. You don't know, who the director is all the time.
Who's
You have
rewriting?
no idea who the characters are in your head. But I think with this film, I mean, there was just, I think there was just so much of it that just felt like faded, if you will. I wrote it 10 years ago. Like it was 2013. Sorry, I started working on it, researching in 2013. And then I would say didn't start writing until 2014. I was temping at the time when I got it. I was like broke for the
Yeah.
most part. And but I was so passionate about this. I moved to New York for 3 months, subletted my apartment, because I was like, this is what,
Yeah.
screenwriters.
Exactly. I
And
suffer
yeah,
from
right. And but there was the Rustin papers are at the Library of Congress. So I went to DC, and then in New York, there are like all kinds of, records about King and other members of the movement. And that's where I did the one-on-one interviews as well. So most of Bayard's people from Bayard's life, professionally and personally, are based in New York and DC. And I did about 19 hours of one-on-one interviews, which I would say that was probably the most rewarding experience at the beginning, because with Bayard Rustin, especially for a gay character, it's difficult to get people to open up, especially from that generation, because they still feel the danger
yeah.
that he was in. But yeah, so that's how it started. Oh, sorry. How the peaks and valleys. So I didn't know it was going to happen. So it was set up at one place, and a director attached, and it was like exciting. Then that fell apart, and then Lance, he was producing it, eventually took it to Netflix. So yeah, Coleman read my draft. It's funny because like he read my draft, and I heard that he read my draft and fell in love with it. And I wasn't super familiar with his work then.
Yeah.
But when I saw him and I started to look at his work, I was like, this is Bayard Rustin. I was like, no one else can play this. Because back then there were only like 5 like bankable Black actors, and none of them were going to play gay. So finding a brilliant actor like Coleman, who was also gay, was just perfect. And then it moved to Netflix and the Obama's company, and it actually happened.
Yeah, like good things happen. No, but what you say is so true about beyond just seeing someone play the role. It's actually really good casting, not just because Coleman Domingo is good at his job, but is a character actor. So like you said, not horribly familiar with his work. I think most people might say that, but most people also would go, oh wait, I know that guy. You've seen him in something. He's made a movie better. He's made a show. He's popped up. He's done the thing. And he's done almost every kind of role. So you don't necessarily go in with a preconceived notion, but in a way, because unfortunately most people are being introduced to Bayard Rustin, you're going, all right, and I kind of know who that guy is. So I'm open to learning, but I have just enough familiarity that I feel like I'm in good hands, as opposed to the complete unknown where there's like, show me. Or if it's Denzel and you're like, oh, look, he's playing a character, and you're just watching him play a character the whole time.
Yes. Yeah, I think that like, with Coleman, he embodied Bayard. So, the mannerisms, I mean, he did research as well, on Bayard, and he talked to the people who knew Bayard's partner, Walter Nagel, who, I'm still close with. I mean, he has been keeping Bayard's legacy going, even when, he was like right now, this is a big moment for him. So I'm happy because all of his work is being rewarded. And with Coleman, it's uncanny. Like, just all of the things that I thought that Bayard was, he brings it to the character in still a new way
Yeah.
that is incredible. Like I was crying through the whole movie just because it felt like this man who had been my hero for years come to life.
Yeah. Which is, what else can you ask for except even just like that first day on set when you walk by and go, okay, they're making the movie. The picture in my head now is like real. And obviously it's everyone else's picture in their head kind of morphing into this other thing.
Yeah.
But just seeing it happen, you're like, oh, there's Coleman. He's doing his version of what I wrote. And we kind of have the same idea, even though, and I didn't think he would have done that. You start to have that. And then when you see it on screen, filtered through a director's vision, I think it's first of all, it's a miracle any movie gets made to begin with, but
Right.
that a writer can look and recognize their film.
Yes. Yes. I mean, that was probably the most rewarding thing because, there were composite characters in there. There were, relationships, character, dynamics, that were relationship dynamics that were really important to me. Because I felt like, I did everything I could to make sure that, the moments, the relationships were as authentic as possible. And George, I mean, he captured them, and, beautifully. This is the first time that there's been a Black gay screenwriter, a Black gay lead actor, and a Black gay director on in a studio film. And it's, I feel like, like knowing some of how Bayard felt.
Yeah.
Uh, I think that kind of thing, I think it helps. I think for this film, it shines through.
Oh, yeah. And I think interestingly, it speaks to sort of the dueling nature of the times, and that it's obviously part of the narrative and should be part of the narrative, but it's not the first thing everyone talks about when talking about the movie. And you know, when you wrote it, I think unfortunately it probably would have been an issue. And in between the times, it would have been the story, and the movie would have gotten a little swallowed up. Like, hey, and becomes this like weird, almost sideshow of like, look what these guys did. Like, we just made a movie. Like, go watch our movie. Like, acknowledge that like this should happen more often. But like, why is this the only story? And I think it's hitting at the right time where people, they go good, but also that's not what we need to focus on because we want to watch a good movie about this person. And
Right.
it's sort of it's heartening in a weird way. It almost feels like it shouldn't be. You like we shouldn't even have to have the conversation. But the
Yeah.
fact that it's not swallowing it up and allowing the movie to be its own thing is very cool to see, I think.
Yeah, I think George did that in a very elegant way. I mean, there are things that were in my draft that were cut out. And I think that they were great decisions, because those things would have, I felt like George did a great job of being true to Bayard as a sexual being,
Yeah.
but also really like keeping it focused on what his passion was in that moment, which was Black liberation, this fight that he'd been working on his entire life. And, I felt like it was brilliant. I felt like the movie was in great hands. So yeah, no, it felt really good.
You never have a moment watching it where you're not both aware of this is a human being who liked to enjoy himself. He was a personable person. Like he liked people, like being out in the world mattered. And that's also you're still watching a movie. Like you want to watch a character be dynamic and do things. There's something to be said for even if the character was very boring and basic and doing a good thing. As a writer, you probably have to be like, well, he has to do something fun here and there. Otherwise, why are we watching him sit behind a desk for 2 hours? But I think the movie does such a good job of while always showing you like he was down for a good time. Like you said, there was a job to do, and the job was always number one. And if he could do both, the smile on his face was I'm saving the world and making myself happy. And I think the movie captures that in a way that like this kind of biographical film almost never does. Like the joy of the human being is very hard to grasp, I think, for movies that are trying to be homework in a way.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I feel like, I mean, that's who Bayard was, just
Yeah.
like you said. I mean, he loved life. He wanted other people to be happy. He wanted to motivate people. I mean, that was really important for him because he was so, motivated and true to his causes. And, for me, there's nothing that I don't like more than a super, austere, dry, um, biographical film. Because the reality is there's humor in life,
Yeah.
period. You know what I mean? And so, and like, I've definitely worked on projects where, it's someone who doesn't like humor, isn't into, wants to keep things serious. And, that's fine. I think for me, in everything that I do, like I try to find the humor in it. And yeah, and you still stay true, even if it's the most boring person in the world. Like you have to there's something that is humorous and true. I mean, that's what humor is. So yeah, no, it feels real. Thank you for saying that, because that was really important to me. And I think George hit it home. He really did.
100%. And as we wrap up, speaking of humor, I think it's for you, I'm sure it's darkly funny that finally get this movie made and then I go on strike. So I couldn't talk about it for a while. Like, great, like good for me. I want to have a better life, but also in the like 10 years this was happening, it had to be this exact moment, right as it's playing at a film festival. I'm sure that was you just kind of have to laugh and go, of course this would happen. This is exactly what would happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the actors are still on strike. And I met up with Coleman recently, and he's like raring to get out there. So this is a huge moment for him. But I will say that I was so proud of my guild.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bummer that I couldn't like meet you at Telluride, but it was what the WGA accomplished. Is it's a landmark moment for, and just also the impetus for so many other labor demonstrations around around the country. So very proud. And that's what Bayard was about.
Exactly.
March on Washington was the march for jobs and freedom. And he realized the importance of, he knew the importance of unions, collective bargaining. That was a part of freedom. He knew that, economic equality. And I don't know, it kind of felt right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, you want Coleman eventually to be able to be out and about, but for now it works. And it's funny, you hear all the directors at these things go, and I just spoke to the cast and they really wish they can be there. And you go, I know that's like 50-50 on whether that's true or not. There's plenty of people who are like, no, I'm good to sit here. Like, tell me when it's time to go back to work. But like, I don't have to go put on a dress and show up. Like, it's cool. You got this. But I think, especially for Coleman, I'm sure he's like, time off is great. I like my family, but this is one I wouldn't mind. Like, and I've interviewed him before. He's happy to talk to anyone about anything. Like he likes working and he likes you seeing the work. So I'm sure I believe it when he's like, I'm when the bell rings, like tell me when I'll get on camera. Let's go. Like it's
Yeah. No, I mean, he's ready for it. But again, he's also like proud of his guild for pushing, so yes, I can't wait for him to be able to get out there, because the way that he speaks about the film, he's so passionate about Bayard Rustin and that moment. So can't wait to get him out there.
oh yeah, it's gonna be great. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm looking forward to more people seeing it because it's very slower out from the festivals, and festivals are one way to see a movie, but I think people expect a certain movie when they go to a festival screening, and I like that this kind of plays with that a little bit. And like we were saying, is like, no, you can have a good time with this. You don't have to like be sad necessarily. You can be moved by what's going on, and there is tragedy to this person's life, but you can also feel you can leave celebratory as opposed to like, boy, that guy got fucked over, because we got plenty of those. There's 10 of those. You could write some of those even. Like it's nice to
Yeah,
have this one.
I really appreciate that, Joey. Like that is, that's what I shoot for. So thank you.
Mission accomplished. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.